As the world prepares for the threat of Alpha falling upon them, Lan has a nightmare over possibly losing Megaman in the coming conflict, all a result of their failure to recover its sealed form before, and this all compounding his earlier guilt over Match tricking him and the concerns he'll screw up again. Hell, the situation's so bad that officials in freaking robot tanks are now in AC/DC, which is a freaking suburb of all places. And to tie back to my supposition back in my Battle Network 1 review, Wily is a failed roboticist because the world decided to fund the advancement of network technology first and foremost. And yet, here's evidence advanced robotics exists in this setting, so his work in robotics never being acknowledged cannot be his true motivator for everything he does. It has to be jealousy over Tadashi Hikari being heralded while he was left in the shadows, a psychotic break after his son died, or something else screwing with his head. The school's closed, though take a side trip to the park so you can get Roll's version 3 Navi chip from the worried male, for as always Roll's chips are dead useful. Eventually by talking to the right AC/DC denizens, you'll get a flag to meet the officials at Scilab, as they're gathering the most capable net battlers in the region for a counterattack on Wily's base. And obviously as Lan saved the world 3 times, they need him for this. The officials briefed the volunteers on Alpha, which as said was intended to be an automated oversight system for the entire network, referred to as the Primal Internet. It didn't go well, the number of things interacting with it basically making it pull a Morgana mode gone and or Skynet, and went entirely rampant, causing the same types of chaos we've seen occur through the 3 games previously, just all at once. And again, this is why you don't connect every frickin' thing to the internet, no matter how much you want to access Twitter on your smart refrigerator. That's actually a news story, go look that up and read it, it's hilarious. Unfortunately, as I said before, Bass, the first solo Navi, or Auto Navi as it is called here, was scapegoated for the entire incident and all attention was directed towards Bass, even as the disasters got worse. And eventually every network-connected device worldwide self-destructed, as Alpha began to literally devour the entire network it was meant to regulate, like a self-expanding amoeba, or the Blob, or, again to reference .hack, Pluto's Kiss. Eventually it was stopped by Gigafreeze stopping it in its tracks, and Alpha's core program was sealed separate from the data mass it devoured, which was returned to the normal network. Though during the Alpha Revolt, as it was called, the amount of things connected to the network was minuscule in comparison to what is connected to it a decade after. So again, imagine every scenario we've ever had to deal with thus far, only with them being done all at once, and that's the chaos Alpha can dish out. There's a reason I made the comparison to Morgana mode gone. But then the other shoe drops as, all those tanks, they're autonomous attack units. They're controlled by programs connected to the internet. And they deployed them to deal with the threat of a terrorist organization who is in possession of not only the AI that literally hijacks everything in the network that is in existence, but is also led by a man who's one of the greatest scientific minds concerning robotics and leads a group of people who are experts in screwing with anything automated or technology-driven. You know, it makes so much sense that Lan shot in their navies end up becoming the Earth's greatest heroes if the military is that kind of brain-dead. I mean, come on, guys! There's gotta be a manual mode or network shutoff so those tanks can be run by navis isolated from the endangered network. So, of course, the officials now send a 10-year-old kid to fight Tachikomas from Ghost in the Shell in order to delete the Alpha-based data anomalies that have hijacked its system. Okay, maybe I should have been comparing that less to Morgana Mode Gone and more to Ida. Maybe an amalgamation of the two. Oh, and this gets worse. All military tech has subsequently been infected, so yeah, we've got the Skynet scenario going down too. Thus, all the officials end up occupied keeping the military sectors from killing everything, and it's up to us to pull together a strike force and actually raid Wily's base. At least after we figure out where the hell Yuichiro went, as he's not in his hospital bed. He's instead at Scilab working himself to death to track down Alpha. Why? Well, Alpha was his father, Tadashi Hikari's creation, his greatest work, and also his greatest sin when it went nuts. And this is why in the main timeline, Dr. Light had X running morality diagnostics for 2 centuries. And moreover, stopping Alpha's rampage is what killed the eldest Hikari in this timeline. That's not stated here, but it further informs why Yuichiro is doing this. This rampaging AI is responsible for killing his father, He's not going to let his father's work destroy the world after he sacrificed himself to save it, nor let his sons risk themselves again, as they're obviously going to be drawn into the conflict if this all goes on. Again, Yuichiro may end up an unintentional absentee parent due to his workload, but unlike a lot of the others I've seen over time, it is plainly clear that he freaking does care. Moreover, to look back on my analysis of Wily's character in this series, losing Tadashi might potentially have been one of the reasons why Wily went nuts in this timeline, since he views the society as corrupt and neglectful towards what really matters, and that makes more sense if he lost his best friend and external moral compass as a result of that technology. The world government covered up the Alpha Revolt and pretended like it never happened, and Wily didn't have a beef against the world before then. And as far as we know, thanks to scenes from Battle Network 5 and 6, it wasn't until after Tadashi left the picture that Wily started to go bad. So it's possible that the heralding of the martyred man that followed his death, absence the reason behind his sacrifice being made public, was one of the starting points to his eventual fall, in concert with the other reasons I've discussed. It would actually match well with both Bass's own storyline presented within this game, an idea of why Bass would think to even temporarily ally with him, and why Alpha would be so tempting a weapon to use against Net Society, all in one neat, tidy package. Even if there is a bit of hypocrisy in wanting to use the thing that killed Tadashi to kill everyone else that took his loss for granted. Unfortunately, Yuichiro is not healed from his earlier injuries, and his pain medication fails him at this point, right as he finds World 3's base, thus leaving him in no condition to argue with Lan as he insists on taking that information and going himself. Okay, I might have to take back a bit of that caring but often absentee parent line. Meh. Lan saved the world 3 times at this point. Yuichiro can probably trust him. Wily, though, has set himself up this time on an island amidst the demon currents, a section of the sea whose currents end up creating a network of whirlpools that are a death trap to any travelers who make the attempt to brave them, even by air. So it's half the sea routes in Hoenn, then. What, they're both GBA games I really liked. Fortunately, certain ship engines haven't adjusted so some can specialize in traversing the area, which just takes us inspecting the ship at the wharf off of the TV studio and talking to Yai about her rich butt buying a strong enough engine to do the job for us. Though Yai figures out what Lan's up to, even as he attempts to fake out what's going on to keep those who clearly won't be able to keep up in combat out of danger. Thus, Wily prepares his subordinates, all assembled once again, for the coming carnage while expecting the officials and Lan to show up at some point. And sure enough, Lan is ready to go, with Yuichiro mailing him the Navi Customizer program Alpha, which allows Megaman to see any floor tiles that contain hidden alphas within them. But as we reach the boat, it's revealed that Yai spilled the beans to everyone, and Chod, Dex, and Tora are joining the party with their Navis as backup. Chod in particular not wanting to be left out again, after the last few times where Lan was left to deal with the incident solo. Wily's base is, of course, once more a Skulltrine fortress, but the place is kind of a pain to navigate. I'm kind of curious whether Wily has secret shortcuts around everywhere, otherwise his old man body has to traverse like a mile to get in and out every day. Dude's spry for an old-timer. He must work some mad cardio. But the entire facility, instead of having jack imports for PETs, is peppered with chairs hooked into the facility servers, which is revealed to be a pulse transmission system. This is explained by Dr. Cossack, who followed us here himself. The pulse transmission system, for all intents and purposes, operates the same as an AI-hacked headset in the .hackverse or Sword Art Online's full dive technology, and it transfers a full human consciousness into cyberspace via transmission of their brainwaves, since cyberspace had already been mapped and rendered into a means that human consciousness can understand and interact with. Amusingly, this game originally released on December 6, 2002, approximately a week before .hack Outbreak hit store shelves, and long before Sao's exposition chapters explaining how its tech worked was originally put online as a web novel. Considering what the development cycle was for these games, the similarities between them in this aspect was likely intentional. But the downside of the tech is due to the means by which it transfers electrical signals. Well, injury in the cyber world translates itself back to the body as feeling the injury. You die there, you're rendered brain dead in the real world at worst, if you don't just have an aneurysm that kills your body outright. Ryotaka Misaki's manga made use of this concept as well, but skipped the pulse transmission tech in its adaptation, simply implementing these side effects to Lan and Chod achieving full synchro consistently with Mega Man and Proto Man. though by less understandable means of transmission that are likely more based on when LAN and Hub entered full synchro in the prior numbered games due to their spiritual connection as brothers. I just shrug and handwave that kind of thing though, as I bought it blind for Digimon Tamers also doing that kind of feedback reaction, so I've got no right to complain here. Everyone questions why Cossack is here though, considering his fall from grace following the Alpha revolts, but it's pretty obvious why. He's here to settle things with Bass, and as he transmits himself in, he pays witness to how far his creation and friend have fallen in pursuit of power so he would never be hurt again. And Cossack decides to stop him the only way he can. Is he making the Cyberworld's equivalent to the Spirit Bomb? Sadly though, this is my least favorite take on their interaction. Cossack just seeing Bass as a monster that needs to be stopped and saying as much, denying the torment Bass has suffered and not even giving him an apology for failing him like he did. Just treating Bass as another disposable thing. It's no wonder the game's version of Bass has an unending malicious scorn for humanity, if even his creator sees him as just another evil thing beyond reason that deserves nothing but deletion. Now, there are some localization changes with this that makes Cossack a hell of a lot less sympathetic towards everything Bass went through, as apparently in the original script, Cossack more put forth the idea that whatever Bass suffered, it isn't justification for wanting to commit wholesale slaughter in the same vein as the other World 3 minions and antagonists. An assertion that fit a hell of a lot more thematically with most of Wily's minions this time around, as most of them were put into manipulative bargains where they believed they would be getting what they wanted, while Wily got his world destruction scheme out of it in the endgame. There's no promotion of the idea here that Wily's just using Bass due to his anger of what happened a decade ago, but it's Bass himself who is in the wrong in his entirety. But yeah, Cossack blows up his cyber body to try and take Bass down, his body taking the backlash and is left in critical condition, but he's not dead. Dex takes him back to the ship as the rest push forward, being attacked by remote drones controlled by the World 3 navies. The crew manages to distract the bots so Megaman can jack in, and of course face the revived and enhanced navies in the unit. Specifically, Flashman. These regions are where you specifically need the Alpha Customizer program installed, as otherwise the Alpha Blobs will lock you down and the bot's data defenses will kick in and return you back to your starting point, which just frustratingly delays your search for the Navi, and also his operator. Yes, all of the World 3 operators have transmitted themselves in, for the express purpose of using LAN and Hub's own prior narrative 11th hour win button of full synchro for themselves. You do realize that these two operate at near full synchronization as Net Operator and Net Nav, but without any tech augmented in it to bring it about, right? And yeah, these Alpha-type Navis are stronger than the original ones, but if you've tracked down the V2 and V3 ones for the Navi chips, alongside having a well-developed folder, each of these guys is a cakewalk, even with Aqua Custom being weak against the Elect Element Flashman. Also, I should note each of these combat drones have the highest power variants of the game's common viruses, at least before the post-game content. It is actually wise to try and farm some stuff here if you might be looking to improve your battle chip folder. One that sticks out that can be important later to survive playing in the post-game is the pop-up virus, because it sports the pop-up chip that's, well, basically an improved invisible chip. I still prefer invisible chips, but there's a decent debate for the pros and cons of both in the player community. With this, they find Wily's office and a secret door to further into the facility, where another mech is shooting out capture bubbles, resulting in a similar rematch with Bubble Man, and also Tsunayama and Desert Man farther into the machine. With the last of these defensive robots shooting flames and trapping Chad amidst them, and it of course holding Mr. Match, Flame Man, Anetta, and Plant Man. With the two operators bickering because, well, a pyromaniac would of course burn down all the forests and plant life Anetta wants to preserve in this stupid scheme. This one is actually one of the hardest battles of Battle Number 3, bringing back the classic Mega Man endgame boss rush, as you have to fight both Plant Man and Flame Man back to back. And that serves as kind of a problem for users of the Disco Inferno strategy. As while Disco Inferno is super effective against Plant Man, meaning you delete him without a problem at any difficulty, well, fire chips aren't exactly effective on Flame Man. Honestly, I think the game developers did this on purpose to discourage use of that exact strategy, as it's not easy to rebuild the deck into a half-and-half water and fire variant to cover both bases. Fortunately, that can be fixed by taking advantage of the Navi customizer and the custom styles as I do to give me a full 10-chip custom window. Meaning with how I build my chip folders to move synergistically from chip to chip in rapid succession, it's far easier to just chip away at him by spamming what I have, whether it's an advantage or not. Particularly, I've noticed my preference for the Aqua Chip Metagel, which actually operates the same as Area Grab Battle Chips, but with a water element to them and the Metagel dropped on the field doing damage to enemies with what they do. They're actually a consistent staple of my folders from here on out in the Battle Network games, particularly because there's something elemental to screw with potential virus and enemy Navi weak points. And yeah, if you've watched these videos and think it's always best to stick to the specialty super effective folders to be good at stuff, not really. It is a shortcut, yes, which alleviates a bit of the headache of figuring out a good chip folder, but sometimes you'll just naturally gravitate to certain chips that benefit you more over time, like I have between the sword and boomerang chips that just feel natural to take advantage of. Sometimes splashing in something that makes the deck seem less effective actually makes it work better. But I told a lie earlier. This wasn't the last robot. The true last defensive drone is controlled by Drollman. This is another reason to look into rebuilding your chip folder entirely for the final battles, as it is not any easier to fight him than last time. Though this time I slot in a lot more counterattack-oriented chips to try and catch him in the act of attacking me without endangering my hit points. It took me far less time to put him down, with Protoman coming in for the save and quick deletion when Drollman tries to activate a self-destruct win button card. Meaning it's time for the final battle. But before we get to all of that, yeah, it's time to discuss the postgame, and holy crap, there is a lot to do this time. So much that it's hard to tell you even where to start. Well, okay, I tell a lie again, as there are several preparatory steps you need to go through to complete the postgame content. As I said, you need to do every side quest on the jobs board, with the last of them unlocking after you conquer the bad guys and get the game's clear flag. If you've not been doing them up until now, then it can be a bit of a time sink for, frankly, paltry rewards at this stage in the game, but the ones that give boosts to Mega Man's base abilities. Then, and the far more rewarding time sink, is of course tracking down the ghost data of all the net Navis you've battled in order to get all of their chip data. Now there's a problem with the ghost Navis in this game, and I alluded to it earlier. They don't appear in consistent locations. In every other game in the franchise that as you fight ghost data, you encounter them in the exact same spawning area, the V2 version encounterable in a specific spot, and then after you fight it, any following version is just a random encounter in the same area. That, however, isn't done in Battle Network 3, with the random boss encounter for the most advanced version of the opponent Navi, then spawning in an entirely different part of the game you then need to go and find again. There are of course exceptions where stagnant Navis show up in the same spot, but it's usually the extra bosses and the character partner Navis, but any enemy Navi part of the game, yeah, no, you need to consult a guidebook to figure it out as you'll never find them again otherwise. This is a bit frustrating as the game, beyond the chip collection time sink, locks out sections of late game maps, whose key is having a battle record defeating the V3 versions of the Navis. Worse, as I again alluded to earlier, they kinda messed with chip collection this time. While previous and following games would only have 3 successively stronger versions of each Navi chip, this game also added the V4s and V5 battle chips for each Navi you fight, with every V5 classified as a Gigachip. However, there is only one way to get the V4s, and it is to S-rank a battle with a V3 Navi. Well, you have Team Style equipped, and Team Style is always one of the most difficult styles to acquire as it necessitates a reliance on Navi chips in battle to generate it even to get the chance to spawn it. But by them all being Mega Chips, you can only use it 5 at a time before that. Between standard and defensive chips, you'll likely generate custom shield or shadow style long before you get to it, and the only reasonable way to obtain it is to raise Mega Man's regular memory number high enough that the V1 of the weakest Navi chip can be selected as a regular chip that'll then always spawn your custom window. And you won't get that until the end of the game anyways. But Team Style is rough to get used to regardless, since you're only likely to do your best to S-rank an enemy Navi with the liberal use of chained chips and program advances. Something that isn't as easily done without Custom Style or the Navi Customizer being outfitted to accept the Custom +1 programs when you're out of Custom Style, and thus have fewer chips available to you in the custom window to put everything together. The V5s, though, despite not being required to access the post-game bosses, are both better and worse than this, as it requires you complete literally everything else in the game, denoted by 5 stars. Reach the end of the game, beat the ultimate extra boss, complete a time attack trial of the Navi bosses, and complete the standard library including all of the V4s. Then you need to put in a secret code on the main screen. RRLRLRLL. This turns every Navi in the game into their ultimate Omega counterpart, one stronger than the game's standard extra bosses, that they then need to fight to get the V5 chips. But now they're in yet another new location you need to track down. Defeat all of them, and you get the 6th star. And finally, that 7th star comes from performing every program advance in the game. The Advanced Pre-Power, short for Grand Prix Power, is the only existing program advance that requires you to use a Giga chip, the V5 chip for either Kingman, Mistman, or Bowlman. And it's an advance that kind of sucks. And this is said by a guy whose favorite advance is Master Style. That final 7th star is the final, "You've completed everything! Congratulations!" flag for this entry. Just call me the 7-star net assassin. Though while I'm on the tangent of Navi chips, as I kind of implied before, you should worship the ground that Plant Man walks on simply for how awesome his Navi chip is throughout all of these battles. It binds every enemy you're fighting, then hits them multiple times in a row, which is only enhanced with attack increasers. And then after his attack animation ends, every enemy that survived is still bound, leaving them open for any additional attack you can unleash, while also continuing to constrict and damage them for a bit longer afterwards that sometimes, even if you do nothing, can kill them quite easily. Another surprisingly effective one is Bubble Man's, which is another multi-hitter, but his attack spam is higher than everyone else's. So if you can build a folder around boosting and making sure it hits, it can fire for pretty high damage. Both of which do well in helping you earn S ranks against any of the Ghost Navi data while you're picking all of these up. Unfortunately, it requires a folder around it, as if you just try to splash it in, it sucks. Like, totally sucks. It's kind of a problem with a number of the Navi chips this time. They can be difficult to utilize unless you practice with them, or don't splash well into your evolving folder. Also, I kind of forgot to record me fighting some of the V5 Navis, particularly Plant Man, which is just embarrassing after I just gushed about how useful his Navi chips can be. While not technically part of the completion requisite, it also is a good idea to complete your capture of all the trainable viruses for their virus chips as well. Or at least the ones you can grab at the moment, as there's more down the line in the post-game dungeons. Super powerful Omega variants of each of these viruses become available upon certain requisites, and they boost the power of these chips to their maximum possible capability. Hell, as I said, I personally consider the most powerful one of these the Sensor Killer Eye virus chips. An elect element virus that does piercing paralytic damage that is just perfect for getting through an enemy's defenses to leave them wide open for counterattacks. But with all the V3 Navis dealt with, it opens up new, previously inaccessible regions of the internet, as I said before, allowing you the ability to gain many new customizer programs for Mega Man from all the V3 lockout security doors being removed. Where you find them is you use the gate Drillman made at Scilab to shortcut yourself to Undernet 5. And then the entrance to Undernet 6 is right there. The other most valuable ones are still locked until you complete the final challenge of the game. And said challenge is getting back on track and going to Battle Serenade. But it is not easy getting to Serenade either. You go back to where you encountered them at the Ura Inn in Yoka Yoka, and dive down into their pit to enter his secret area sanctuary that has its own lockout conditions and requirements. Particularly that you have to beat even more interim bad guys and the strongest virus variants in the game, including special security pillars that are just a pain to deal with, as you have to defeat them in order, and you have to take out all of their HP each time in one go. Do less than what their health is, and they'll be entirely undamaged. Fortunately, you don't need to take out every one, just the ones that bar your path to the security door that are locked by prerequisite numbers of battle chips, leading to the first of many boss battles down here against Darkman.
As I worked in the mask, I found the man inside was changing. He became wrong. A monster. I can live with it now, but I don't think anyone else can.
No, not that Darkman. That Darkman was cool and made by Sam Raimi. This one's just creepy. Have you considered playing Halo or Call of Duty? Actually, as Serenade later reveals, he tricked Darkman into that as a means of controlling the Navi's bloodlust and putting it to work in keeping the unwanted out. He's actually a surprisingly easy boss, as he swaps between elemental alignments, meaning thanks to the sensor virus chip, I can pretty easily cover all of my elemental bases in fighting him, as long as you can avoid his bats. It is around this time I actually started using the Program Advanced Barrier 500 as well, which helps immensely in surviving down here, as it makes it so most things can't kill you. Combo that with the Sanctuary panels that have all damage dealt to you, and there's practically no chance any enemy in the secret area will be able to touch you after you've got it all set up. While Darkman's door was locked by having 140 standard battle chips, the next is locked by a requirement to have 170 of them, and leads you into conflict with Japan Man, obviously drawing his design basis off of a samurai who specialized in spears. His entire personality is more of a gruff guardsman, not having the lust for death Darkman did, but, well, he takes his job guarding Serenade pretty seriously. Battling him is mostly sane. His spear generates thrusting attacks with the attack radius of long, wider step swords, though all are telegraphed when he prepares to attack. He can also call up his own set of spare infantrymen to also jab across into our field, which admittedly complicates things as when they charge forward they steal squares. I didn't really use a specified strategy against him, just chipped away at his 1600 health until the battle ended. Which just leaves the last gates to Serenade, requiring you to obtain all 200 standard chips to unlock, which thus leaves our meeting with Serenade, who continues to be impressed with our capabilities, and offers up the title of Underking if we manage to beat him. Of course you've not. Serenade's design aesthetic is based on a genie. No, it's because his entire philosophy is being so strong so as to be merciful to any opponent he may face, becoming strong so one would have no need to go through meaningless shows of power, and alternatively make anyone who then still challenge him see the folly of doing so without having to kill them. Doesn't work in this case though, since forced battles in this game are more common than moving into a Pokemon trainer's field of vision. Serenade is hard. On top of having 200 hit points, his simple shots hit every panel in succession, unleashing slashing waves and counter to most of your attempted attacks that cross the screen in an instant. Oh, and using invisible battle chips does not work at all to avoid his attacks, and he's only weak when he uses his Holy Shock technique, meaning you are only capable of doing damage by counterattacking him. Even if you Game Sharked in access to the Gigachip Bass.exe, that chip does nothing against him. To give an idea in-game of the relationship between Serenade and Bass, where this is the only person besides us that Bass is consistently beaten by at every turn. Though that level of powerful chip can momentarily stun Serenade so other attacks will work, the window is just too small to do much. Though I went out on a limb and tried using Plantman's Navi chip, and to my surprise the special abilities of that chip allowed it to entirely get around Serenade's absolute defense to both deal damage and paralyze Serenade so other attacks then would work. Once again, I cannot stress enough the sheer value of Plantman's chips in this game, as does the Battle Chip Sensor 3 and the Metal Gels I said I used earlier. I'd say the key for getting around Serenade's absolute defense is using chips that momentarily darken the screen and pause battle, but as I said and showed, Bass.GS didn't do damage, only caused him to flinch, which is inconsistent with the other instances. Life Ore as well is a godsend in this battle, and is a mega chip you'd have gotten at this point in battling Scuttle Viruses down here, and should allow you to absorb most of the big damage attacks alongside Barrier 500. But this is certainly a battle of heavy attrition. Serenade congratulates us for winning and giving it our all, officially crowning us the King of the Undernet! But also charging us to deal with Bass, as he's fallen back into the Undernet and is hungry for battle as the incarnation of net destruction, whom Serenade only barely beat the last time. This also gives us the hint of how to find and challenge him, with Bass healing himself through absorption of bug frags. Bug frags, I would remind you from the previous game, were spread throughout the cyberworld due to Lan and Hub's defeat of the Gospel Bug Beast last game. A Gospel Bug Beast that was created in the first place from bug frag generated copies of Bass. You see how that all loops back on itself? But wait! There's more! Once you have obtained all the families of tameable viruses to show one's compassion towards benign viruses, this door unlocks. I'm honestly forgetting off the top of my head, and I checked the footage, but I couldn't be clear. I'm not sure if you need all the Omega variants of the viruses, just the core families, as I said, that did need to be tracked down earlier. I might be wrong in this and misremembering, so might as well go down and find the Omegas that you can. And that path leads us in turn, if you walk across an invisible path, to this pillar. Defeat the defense program, which contains a long string of back-to-back virus battles, and you'll earn outright the Hub Batch program, which with the mod tools code mentioned before creates once more the perfect version of Hub once again. Which is just in time to dump 300 bug frags into the bug frag trader right next door to it to get any spares of chips you might need. However, Bass does not spawn immediately. You'll need to leave and come back and journey through the secret areas again, all along the way getting ominous warnings of doom. Only for it to be revealed that the base that is recovered from the conflict at the end of the game is one that exists in complete absence of memory, lost of his grudge and sense of identity, merely reduced to a berserker longing for battle and the urge to constantly grow stronger, devoid of his prior reasons why he does so to protect himself from those who once wronged him. This is the true, final tragedy of Bass.exe. His quest for power so he would never be hurt again consumed him until nothing he was existed any longer. Naught but a specter haunting the deepest recesses of the network until its eventual end. Now, while it's not explicitly stated that's what happened here, in Battle Networks 4, 5, and 6, when he shows up, that's all he is. A consuming dark force coming to haunt those who are strong or cross into his territories without any regard for anything else. Ironically though, because I'm used to fighting Bass before from the prior games and our encounters earlier in this one, I actually find Bass to not be as big a challenge as Serenade in this game. He has the same amount of health as Serenade right now, but as long as he can get rid of his life aura and avoid some of his gospel-rooted attacks, you're pretty much set. Hell, a new strategy I found which worked wonders with a few of the denizens of the secret areas as I was fighting Japan Man and Darkman's V2 and V3 navies for their navi chips was the Rook Osteel chip that Kingman previously used against us is a damn solid defensive barrier that easily deals with any of the random shot projectiles across the board for the time that they're on the field. I've not seen anything that destroys them, though they will vanish on their own in time. So that's a simple way to deal with Bass this time. Put a Rook on the field, cast Northwind to make him lose life aura, and then smack him with as many program advances as you can muster. Case in point, me finally getting around to building my preferred double hero battle chip folder. A means of defeating him I do on purpose, but not for the reason you might think, as it's actually an allusion once more to Ryotaka Misaki's manga, where when Bass comes back as Bass.GS, well, it leads to the manga's introduction of Double Soul with Mega Man and Proto Man fusing into Proto Soul. It is an absolutely awesome fight, and I highly recommend it. Please. The God of Destruction has a lion mounted on his torso. Or moonlights as a Satan. Or gets scapegoated at the job by idiots as he wanders around dimensions while a time-breaking jackass is actually responsible for screwing it over. Or is a skinned cat deity. Japan creates too many gods of destruction. I could seriously go on with those who could call it some variation of that. Old Mega Man gets to diss him in the Ore wa Genkai wa Nai style of Ultraman Zero, and now Bass just can't let go of his solo Navi status and his isolations, only destroying himself in the long run. It does start to bring back lost memories of Cossack. But as I said, Bass has become too much of a lumbering specter to listen, and I truly believe any metaphorical humanity he had left in him is gone at the end of this game. Well, whatever. With Bass defeated, that opens up the various NetNavi time trials throughout the secret areas where they require you to defeat the game's Navis in different specified times. the toughest ones giving you 45 seconds to pull it off, while Flashman's is the shortest and you need to kill him in 10 seconds. And after that, it's just a matter of enabling access to the Omega Navis I detailed earlier to collect the V5 chips of everybody, which puts them all in super hard play mode. I didn't stress this earlier, but these things are balls to the walls hard, even with the use of a double hero folder as I am now, due to the increase in damage and health everyone has. To the point that, yeah, I had to uninstall Hub Batch and build a Navi customizer scheme more reliant on custom window boosting than anything. I honestly feel that I got lucky to win some of these that I did. Even managed to do fairly well against Serenade Omega and Bass Omega to crush them. Though Bass Omega is himself frustrating to fight, as he's at the end of 3 battles with Scuttle viruses. But hey, at the end of it all, I can say that, even if it's not on my cartridge like it was the original time I did this, that I completely and utterly cleaned this game's clock and all the challenges it threw at me. Even though I'm not all that great a gamer when it comes to reaction time. While it does have its leaps in difficulty, it really is possible for any player to eventually get the skill necessary to conquer every challenge it poses to you, and not in the ridiculous get-good scrub mentality some modern gamers trash others with. And with all that done, let us finally swing back to closing out the main story. So beyond the last door is Wily himself next to a pulse transmission pod and his fallen minions. Discarding them once more is disposable as you'd expect from him at this point, and only useful as a means of delaying us to actually getting to him. A not unfair judgment considering what happened in the first game with Magic Man being a poor defensive barricade. And hell, the larger mass of reinforcements seems to have worked. Alpha's already 80% free and ready to go nuts. Unfortunately though, because Wily's a few minions short of his original forces, namely Takeo and Beastman, there's a pulse transmission machine unoccupied, meaning Lan and Megaman can enter on their own in a last-ditch effort to stop Alpha themselves, the twin brothers meeting in person for the first time, and entering full synchro themselves. In the back of the server, we find Wily tricking Bass into destroying the Guardian program. That's the last thing keeping Alpha sealed with his get ability. So, yeah, we're too late, leading us to have the same old song and dance with Bass about how he's isolated and Lan and Hub are so strong because of their bond which allows them to go beyond absolute power. Standard endgame Bass, though, is a far cry from Extra Boss Bass, though, with half the health and life aura to overcome, so he's comparatively easy with his more standard Earthshock and specials. But as Bass loses, Wily of course is disappointed we just didn't delete each other, and reveals that Bass just released Alpha, the true source of all of his misery, expanding on the retcon I hate about Battle Number 2, and that Wily was also behind them just to get his hands on a copy of him to do this exact thing. The Alpha plot was his plan B after the life virus failed. It just took him a long time to get to here. So really, we should be calling this the beta plot. And he also, ironically, sees Navis in the way Bass hates the most, just as unthinking tools. But Bass's hate for humans was useful for enabling his own destruction, thus leading Bass to be the first devoured by the resurrected Alpha, which begins gobbling up everything, including Wily himself. I'd play Alanis Morissette's ironic clip at this point, but really this is what he wanted to happen. He just didn't think things through on what would happen to him if he was in the network when it happened. So, yeah, it's just as it was 10 years ago. A member of the House of Light facing down Alpha. Or rather, Alpha Omega. Yeah, if you beat every Omega Navi and gather all 7 stars, congratulations! You get to fight this guy! And I can't believe I'm saying this, but this guy's not that difficult in end boss once you've fought all of the Omega Navis. Even his own Omega variant form. At least not the way I played it. What I did was set up a sensor chip to break the guard of his core, and then just spam program advances. No joke, the footage you're seeing is accurate. With the sensor on the field in his area, he just could not hit it, allowing me to just hit him again and again with Double Hero and its weaker variant Duke's Hero without any complications at all. Half its health went down from just the first 2 attacks of doing this, with the rest following soon after. It might have intentionally been locked out of acquisition until the post-game, but damn did Capcom's programmers not know what they were doing when they did so, cause the Double Hero folder really is the Gator win button for this game. With this done, Alpha is deleted, revealing a doorway to a secret hidden within Alpha, the last memories and remnants of the late Tadashi Hikari, locked up with Alpha to originally maintain the Guardian system and reassert it if given a chance if Alpha escaped, which Bass just bum-rushed through. He gives them a message for Yuichiro before sending them off for home, but unfortunately you can only exit the Pulse transmission system where you entered. And as Alpha is the entire network, the destruction of its core hasn't instantly returned everything to normal. Meeting on their way back, they get trapped by one of its collapsing remnants, with no way to escape as it consumes them, bar one. By firing off all the energy he has, Hub can save Lan, but at the cost of himself, as every defense keeping Alpha from consuming his data would be gone. And there's nothing Lan can do to stop him beyond promising his brother to be more responsible and to go on living the life he never could. Lan is freed, escaping with the rest of his small crew as Wily's base goes up and sinks into the ocean. It's not explained if they got everyone else out or not. My money's on them doing so since Mr. Match has another 2 games to be in, bare minimum. The return home, obviously, is bittersweet, as the group are recognized for their actions. Chad closing his own arc throughout the games as he finally receives the recognition he's always wanted from his father. Chad in turn thanking Lan for dealing with him, asking what Lan's going to do now without Mega Man there. Lan confiding in him that he's going to do as Hub asked, and go solo for some time in order to learn to be responsible and not lean on others as a crutch, as Chad's had to do throughout his life. Lan gets the expected responses from his reunion with Mail, Tora chewing him out in turn for making a girl cry, before he finally delivers Tadashi's note to Yuichiro and telling him everything that happened. The elder man realizing his decision to make Navis have real emotion, giving them a semblance of a soul, and to resurrect his dead son in the way he did, may have all been a mistake, as it's like he died all over again now. How many others have felt that same form of loss with their Nabbies, as they've been lost and deleted over time? But at least in the interim, thanks to all the friends Lan's made in part because of Mega Man, he won't be alone with his grief. And in the end, he wouldn't trade those memories for anything. Thus, 4 months pass, and in April of the following year, Lan is all set to continue on into the 6th grade, as Japanese school years start in April. While it's been hard, he's been keeping to his promise to Hub to grow and be responsible, as he's 12 now, and he has to start doing so even if his father's finally decided it's time he obtained a new Navi. Though if you perfectly completed the game, something, or rather, someone else Yuichiro found from decoding Tadashi's note that gave him a backdoor into Alpha is coming back home. Battle Network 3 is glorious. I have nothing more to say. Buy a working cartridge at a secondhand retailer off of the Wii U Virtual Console where it's like $7 or $8. Or if they put it and the other Battle Network games in a legacy collection like all the other Mega Man games have gotten in the future, buy that, cause I know I will. Even if I have to complete it all over again. Well, yeah, as said, it's in competition with 5 and 6 for title of best. I really do feel this one of the 3 is the most successful in regards to story of the Battle Network RPGs. And as my primary draw to gaming is the story and experience of the game in question, it is why I'm in the camp I am and why I promote it as so successful. Whereas the developmental rot Battle Network 4 caused was just so big a hurdle that from a storytelling and frankly times setting perspective, I don't think 5 and 6 do theirs as much justice, which is not helped by the 4, 5, and 6 narrative split to accommodate the story-related version differences. After all, Lan has a character arc here, as do the other characters such as Dex and Chad as well, which you don't see as much past this. Had the next game kept the momentum Battle Network 3 had instead of what ended up happening, I honestly could have seen the Battle Network timeline eventually moving to eclipse the main super fighting robot one, which remains the most known and represented version despite the media rush and expansion the Battle Network series received. Now, here's where I'm going to have to disappoint some people who have waited so long for me to get back to these. It's going to take me a while to get through the next game, Battle Network 4. That one I have to play a total of 6 times. 3 for each of the versions released to review its entire story, as it's all locked up in New Game Plus. And any way around it, that takes time, about 20 hours per repetition. As of the writing of the script, I've only got the first 2 rounds of that done, the first of which I streamed me doing it, but the other 4, yeah, that's about another 100, maybe 80 if I'm fast at it, hours of work at minimum, where I've got a lot of things to do right now. Fortunately, I'm not trying to leave you guys high and dry for that time. I've done badly enough with getting this specific review out as it is. I have been teasing it for a while, but yes, I have decided that I am going to begin looking at the Battle Network anime as a companion series to the game reviews, to contrast the execution of the anime's take in all of these events with that of the games, since I keep mentioning them as I go on anyways. I just wanted to wait until I was a bit further along to begin doing so, as the first season amalgamates the first 3 games in some peculiar ways before branching off to do something original completely. Though there is a couple caveats to doing this. While I will be prescripting work on the first storyline of the Battle Network anime in advance of release, if YouTube decides to be stupid and try and kill my channel due to the recent policy changes, I'll likely end up having to just cut my losses and cancel the project and all other reviews going forward. The same will happen if the production company of the megaman.exe anime, Studio Zebek, starts to copyright claim the videos about the anime series, as I've had enough of a headache with dealing with other companies that getting another series of recap and analysis videos flagged and unmonetizable will not endear me to doing more. Sorry people, but that's the current reality of the web video content producer. My free time and well-being isn't going to get caught up in work that's doomed to being taken down anymore. I would like for that to not be the case, but considering how the last few years have gone, I'm trying to not get anyone's hopes up as I am struggling to produce content for the channel as it is. And with any luck, you'll be seeing that in the coming year, as I'm going to be approaching that a bit differently than I have in the past due to the same time constraints I'm under and the exhaustion I feel every day. If I want to get out the door faster and with less delays than have been occurring the last couple years. But with all that said, I'm Shinta, and remember, don't connect every frickin' thing to the internet because that's how insane people cause apocalypses.